Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, Greg here, founder of www.wrestling-divaz.webs.com, your source for highlighting the most beautiful and deadly entertainers in professional wrestling. Thanks to everyone for tuning in via blogtalkradio.com for another exclusive interview on the behalf of my website. I have a very special guest joining me today. She has been a professional wrestler for a number of years. She has competed for such high-profile companies as Chaotic Wrestling and Ring of Honor, and has faced the likes of Sarah Del Rey and current WWE star Kharma. But she has recently relocated to Ohio Valley Wrestling, where she is the current reigning OVW Women's Champion. So I'd like to welcome my next special guest, the One Girl Revolution, Taeler Hendrix. Hi, Taeler. How are you?
Hi. Well, awesome introduction. I'm well. How are you?
Good, and I'm glad that I nailed that. I would have killed myself if I didn't, so I'm very
Well, we
happy
don't want that.
I got that right. So, starting off, you obviously have a love for professional wrestling, and I assume you grew up as a fan of professional wrestling, watching it on TV, just like many, many others out there. But what was your inspiration for taking that extra step and wanting to train to become a professional wrestler and actually going through with it?
I've always had a thing for, doing things that weren't, how should I say, popular, that weren't mainstream, and, not many people are pro wrestlers, especially women, and at a young age when I saw it and I wasn't allowed to watch it, I thought, oh, this is amazing. They get to travel around the world. They get to act. They get to be athletic. They get to perform in front of millions of people almost every day. I just thought it was the most magnificent thing I had ever seen, and I had to be a part of it.
So going into the training process, I'm sure you had some expectations of how it would go and what to expect as far as the physicality end of it goes. But I'm sure once you actually went through with it, the expectations that you had were certainly changed a bit, because oftentimes in wrestling schools, girls are the underdogs because there are a lot less of them currently enrolled than guys. So they sometimes become the rag dolls and whatnot. So what was the training experience like for you, and how did it change your perception of what wrestlers go through?
Well, I'd have to say that I wasn't really a rag doll for the guys that I trained with. I was more of a rag doll for the other women that I had to wrestle against. A lot of the girls that I had to wrestle back home, I was the new girl, so I guess I could say that I was a rag doll. But I did enjoy working with quite a few of them because they helped me be the wrestler I am today. And my expectation for wrestling and for training was that there were going to be more girls at training, but more times than not, I was the only girl at training. When I was training with Dan Freitas, I was pretty much the only girl. When I was training with Bob Evans, I was pretty much the only girl, And when I was training with Brickhouse Baker, I was pretty much the only girl. So, girls came once in a while, but on a consistent basis, it was usually just me. So my expectation for that was kind of different. I thought there would be more girls, but as I got further and further in wrestling, I realized that women are more of a special commodity and a special attraction in pro wrestling. And training now, I'm constantly reminded of it, because women aren't looked on very highly in the wrestling business, and I'm really thankful that I had mostly men to work with, because it made me the wrestler I am today. I think I would be much different if I had, tons of women at practice. I think a lot of women benefit from wrestling with the guys at training. So I think a lot of girls would agree with me on that one.
So you just said that sometimes women in wrestling aren't think of as high assets or of high value, and I think that's because some people who don't watch wrestling especially just think that a lot of the women are there just for attention on television or in the matches, or just to look pretty in front of the guys, but in a lot of cases that's not true. So how do you rise above that standard, that negativity that everyone sets. It's almost like a stereotype now, unfortunately.
It is a stereotype, and it does suck, but some stereotypes are true. And in this case, more times than not, it's true. I think the female wrestlers that are serious about the business are the exception and not the rule. Because speaking from experience, I know a lot of females who are the exception and not the rule, like, Nikki Roxx, Mercedes KV, Mistress Belmont, those are just a few to name from back home, Those are women that train hard and try to perfect what they do. They aren't here just to be looked at and be seen as pretty. They want to be able to wrestle and be a main event. They want to be able to wrestle just as well as the guys do and put on a beautiful match just as much as the guys do, And the same thing goes for the women here at Ohio Valley Wrestling. Like, we train hard, we work hard, and we do that because we want to be the exception to that stereotype. We don't want to fall into the rule of that stereotype because, unfortunately, it's women who are here for the attention or who are here for the boys that give us a bad name. And it's nothing against them. It's just not who I am, and it's not who a lot of my friends are. And any girl in wrestling, I give them much credit because it's really hard being a female in wrestling because it's a male-dominated sport, and you have my full support because there's a lot of women out there who actually do train hard, who do want to make it and who want to make it for the right reasons, which is more important. And you get out of wrestling almost as much as you put in. So if you're going to training, that's an investment in your career. If you're studying tapes, that's an investment in your career. If you're going to the gym, every time you do those things, it's an investment in your career. And I'm very proud of every single female like myself who does that. So it sucks being looked at like that, but it makes it that much better when you're able to overcome that, if that makes any sense.
When you go into a match, you realize that there's a structure to it and that there's a psychology, if you would, about how to manipulate the crowd's emotions, whether you're the good guy or the bad guy in the match, depending on whatever you're booked for. Going into these matches, a lot of the times, they aren't recorded because these independent companies don't have the luxuries of putting together this big production like bigger companies like the WWE do. So how do you make the best of the in-the-now aspect of a pro wrestling match?
Oh, my gosh. I have so many matches that aren't taped. And some of those I'm really thankful that they weren't taped. But every match you learn something out of it, It's a learning experience. It's a huge roller coaster, as one of my old trainers used to tell me. You can learn something from everyone, whether it's what not to do or what to do, and I feel like it's the same way for every match. I've learned something out of every single match, whether it was a 5-star awesome match or if it was the worst match of my career. I always learn something from it, and I always take what I learned from each match and try to work on it, improve it, and try to improve my craft. So whether a match is being taped or not taped, you still should go out there and wrestle the same because there's still people that paid to see you. And if you don't wrestle your hardest then you're really gypping the people who came to see you. And at the end of the day, the fans are the most important thing because if you didn't have any fans, there would be no show.
So as you progress in your wrestling career and as everyone else progresses in their wrestling career, they find out that, unfortunately, the opportunities to make it to a big company, if that is so your goal, is very slim because there aren't many big companies. I mean, the WWE just totally wiped out all the potentials for their competition, and they make competition within themselves. So as you progress, a lot of people say that you don't need to make it to a big company like that in order to be deemed successful. So in your own opinion, what does it take for a professional wrestler to be successful in this industry?
Oh, my gosh. There are so many people that haven't actually made it to the WWE or permanently on WWE or TNA that have made a success in this business. They've made lots of money, and they do what they love. At the end of the day, I think it really varies on what your definition of success really is, because me, it's just doing what you love and being happy. And one of the people that comes to mind right now who's really successful is Amber O'Neal. I mean, that woman, she's done stuff with WWE and TNA, and now she runs Arena Chicks, and she is part of, WrestleFest and Cauliflower Alley. She does so much, and she helps a lot of females like myself in this business. So right there, that's just at least one example of someone who is not in one of the two major companies in our business, but yet still has done stuff for both of them, works on the independent scene, and is very successful in what she does. I mean, that's if I can't make it into either of those companies or I don't get to stay in either of those two companies, that is exactly what I would try to do, is help others like myself achieve their dreams and at the same time do what I love, because there is money to be made on the indies if you know how to do it the right way.
So this is always a somewhat controversial topic, but the WWE has received some criticism and some praise about how they handle their women's division, and of course, I'm sure you have your own opinion, but getting into it a little bit more, what do you think about the whole model of the mold, the quote-unquote diva? Do you think it's a positive role model for what kids will see and grow up with as they're kind of idolizing these characters? Do you think it's a positive kind of setting for these kids to look up to? What is your take on what they're promoting out there?
Well, I'm not going to criticize the WWE. I'm going to play the political game and not dignify that with an answer, but I will say that the typical model of a WWE diva is exactly what the documentary Beyond Killing Us Softly is talking about. I mean, not every female growing up is going to fit that mold, that stereotype, and it's really traumatic for young girls to beat themselves up every day trying to be that. They don't realize that some of these women have had surgery to look that way. They don't realize that some of these pictures that are taken are airbrushed to look that way, or they have tons of makeup or hair extensions. A lot of little girls that are looking up to the divas and to Hollywood don't realize all the hard work it goes into looking like that. So they constantly beat themselves up and look down on them and get told they're fat. I mean, it's just really sad, and I think that it's it's so funny because I teach seminars about this. It's really hard for young girls, and I don't like that stereotype because I myself have fallen victim to that stereotype, and so I sympathize with women and young girls who feel that they have to look up to that model of the WWE diva, because I've been told myself that I don't fit that mold, and I've killed myself literally trying to fit that mold, but at the end of the day, it's not me, and I would rather be me. And there's plenty of women in this business and around the world who are even not in this business who are very successful, and they do not have to look that way, and they do not have to be that way. They don't have to have double D boobs with a size 2 waist and bleach blonde hair and fake eyelashes to be successful. And I think at the end of the day, that's what matters the most. You know, that Phoenix doesn't fit into that stereotype. Natalia, Sarah Del Rey, you know, Awesome Kong or Kharma, as she's called now, they don't fit that stereotype, and look how successful they are. And that's something that I hope that those girls keep in mind, that the more different you are, the better off you are, because it's something more to look at instead of looking like everybody else. Sorry, that was kind of long.
It's no problem. You just mentioned Kharma, and I would be totally remiss if I did not bring this up, but you actually faced her in an independent show a while back, in which you were victorious. And for those who don't know, Kharma is scary huge. She's 6'1", around 260, 275 pounds. So what was it like being in the ring with someone that intimidating and facing her, because she's big and she's strong and she looks mean in the ring, but she's also an extremely accomplished wrestler. There isn't a company that I think hasn't been on the radar of the national scene and that she hasn't been to. So what was that whole experience like, being the whole underdog, both figuratively and literally, because you're not as tall as she is.
Well, she's a perfect example of what you were just talking about a stereotype. But anyways, she was, wrestling her was a very, very humbling experience. I mean, being looked at in the ring, I'm always the underdog, no matter what, whether I'm the more experienced person in the ring or I'm the taller person in the ring, I'm always looked at as the underdog. And wrestling her was very intimidating, to say the least. And I definitely learned so much from that match. And it was really awesome to get the opportunity to work with her because, like you said, she's very accomplished. I mean, before WWE, she was wrestling in Japan, and she worked really hard out there, and I got to learn just a little bit of what she knows, which was awesome for me because without wrestling her, that's intelligence that I never would have got. And oh my God, was I scared shitless. It was definitely an experience that I'll never forget, and I'm really thankful. And to say the least, I don't think it's very often that I will wrestle somebody who's 6'1", and I'm 5'7", so it was definitely a challenge, but it was also an awesome challenge to overcome.
So when you go on the road, and regardless of whether you're a part of the WWE or Ring of Honor or just doing your own independent bookings, you're traveling a lot, and sometimes it can be very stressful to work a match, then travel, then get 5 hours of sleep, then work through an injury, then wrestle with that injury, and so on and so forth. And a lot of the times, especially people who have longer careers and want to make it to that big company that's on television right now, they get frustrated because they can't get there, and it's not based off of talent sometimes. It's just based off of a certain look or a certain voice. It depends on whatever the WWE or TNA or whatever company is looking for. So, in your opinion, how do you stay grounded in this industry, given all these circumstances that are somewhat working against you as far as, getting to those big companies, if that is your goal?
Well, I mean, that depends on person to person. Getting one of those contracts is like winning the lottery. I mean, sometimes you have to just be at the right place at the right time. Other times it's just plain luck, or, you're just so talented that the WWE can't ignore it. Or maybe they're looking for somebody who looks just like you. It really all depends. I mean, I'll be lucky if they're looking for a redhead, It's all a matter of who you know versus, what you do, how hard you work, how hard you work at what you do. It's really, there's no clear-cut format. There's no clear-cut formula and clear-cut path on how to get there. I think that's what makes it so hard, is you never know where or when to be and where you should be, what you should be doing. But as long as you're working hard, I mean, hard work always pays off, and positivity is a major thing, because the more negative you are, the more negative your work becomes, and the more it shows in everything you do, whether you're cutting a promo or you're wrestling or just plain showing up to an event. If you have a bad attitude, it's going to show, and who wants to hire somebody who's going to represent the company in a negative way? When you get a contract, it's an investment, and they don't want to invest in someone who's negative. So positivity and hard work are definitely the keys to success. I mean, Kevin Kelly told us at a seminar once, getting a contract, the WWE pretty much has a Velcro board that they spin, and all wrestlers are in a Velcro outfit. Whoever sticks on that board, and whoever doesn't, they really don't care. So you have to care enough for them. You have to basically show them why they should want to sign you and why they should want to sign you now. We're all indispensable, so we have to show them what we're worth, and that's pretty much the bottom line to it.
So in a match, there's certainly similarities that every wrestler does, but there's one or two things that, a wrestler does that cannot be copied, and I think that's what makes a wrestler special. So going into every one of your matches, what do you want to see? I mean, what do fans expect to see from you as far as that, special quality? What do you want to show off to them as your special talent or personality trait or mannerism or whatever the case may be?
Well, the one thing the fans usually always notice about me is my fire. I come out there and fight every match as if it was my last, because you never know. One day you could be here and another day you could be gone. I don't plan on wasting any match or any opportunity. I don't care who the opponent is, what the circumstances are, whether I'm champion or not champion, I'm still going to fight that match as if it was my last. And I'm not just fighting for myself when I go in there. I'm fighting for every other girl who's just like me, for every other girl who was told she'd never make it or wouldn't amount to anything, who wasn't pretty enough, who wasn't talented enough. That's what I always bring to the ring. That is what the One Girl Revolution is all about. It's about hope. It's about being a voice for those who can't speak up for themselves, because not everybody who wants to be a wrestler can. Not everybody who wants to be a role model can. So since I am, and I try to be both of those things, I try to make every bit of it count. So whether I'm on a show, like you said, that's not being taped, or I'm having an OVW match that's on TV, it doesn't matter. I wrestle for them as much as I do for myself, because it's an investment in them and it's an investment in me. And as far as what I do in the ring, they should always they see that I have a martial arts background. So if they see a kick, they know I'm going to throw it. If they see an opportunity, they know it's coming. And my opponent half the time probably does or doesn't see it coming. So that's what I bring into the ring. I bring fire, energy, positivity, martial arts, anything you name it, I bring it.
If you could sum up your experience with wrestling in just one word, what would that one word be?
Oh my God, that is one question nobody has ever asked me. Geez Louise. Fighter, I guess.
So before we wrap up,
Go ahead.
Before we wrap up, how can fans keep in contact with you and keep up to date with all your wrestling events and whatnot?
Oh, they can go on to my fan page. It's an athlete page at www.facebook.com/Taeler Hendrix. Or they can go on my YouTube, which is youtube.com/Taeler Hendrix. Or it's going to get really repetitive. They can go to twitter.com/Taeler_Hendrix. And pretty much it.
Well, thank you very much, Taeler, for your time, and I just really admire your passion to succeed in this industry, and I'm sure the One Girl Revolution will be going strong for many years to come, so I wish you luck in all your endeavors.
Thank you so much. That's so nice of you. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks to everyone else for tuning in to this interview. Be sure to check out www.wrestling-divas.webs.com, and that's Divas with a Z, for more exclusive content and videos. And be sure to follow the site on Twitter at Wrestling Divas, again with a Z at the end, for all the latest updates and interview teasers. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Taeler, and be sure to check out the site for more content.